Welcome to Trading Lounge and the Asian Report. I'd like to start with the S&P and then go to the FTSE. And with the S&P here, just as a bit of a sentiment sort of indicator for Asia, is that we have this particular count that we're looking at here, going from intermediate wave 3 with an A wave and a B wave and 5 waves in the C wave here for wave 4 here. And within that structure from wave 2 to wave 3 here, we're looking for 5 waves. So looking at wave 1 to the downside, wave 2 to pull back to the 61.8% where it is now, and then move down lower. So if you see weakness in this particular market here, then you know where we're at and where the sort of main sentiment and driver is coming from at this point. So Monday can be bullish, so we can start to look into Tuesday and so on. But this particular number here, the 2650, which is the halfway mark between the 800 and the 500, two important levels. So it's a real balance point here where this market sits. So while it's sitting above this, it's on the bullish side, but below this, it's on the bearish side. Okay, at the moment it's vibrating across that. Let's see how much steam it's got to the upside here where it meets supply, and if it gets forced back down through this. So this is a sentiment indicator, but what I wanted to look at was the FTSE here. The relationship between England and Australia is quite strong, and in terms of the SPI, the futures contract, and the FTSE here, the FTSE trades probably 10 times as bigger in the futures contract market, but it has the same pattern here from wave 3 here to wave 4 here, as we're looking for an A wave here, an A and a B wave here, and a C wave here. If this had finished in 5 waves down here, then we could have this wave 4 put in place here, okay? But at this stage, because it's only in 3 waves, we have to look at it as a B wave, and then we have to look at this as a C wave here as 5 waves. So we need these 5 waves to complete here, and this is what I wanted to talk about today. Now, this particular pattern here is in Australia, it's in Japan, and it's in India as well. So I will have a look at those in a moment, but just get an idea of this particular pattern that we're looking at, well, in this whole section here, really. So on this market here, on the 4-hour chart, we're looking from wave B. We've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We've been looking up for wave 5 here to 7,500. 505 is the second strongest number in the market, so it's going. This market is definitely going to play a part here, and we just really need to have a little patience and allow it to play out here as such. And what we'd also be looking for here is just how this level is treated here. So I need to update this a little bit, but basically the 3 here and the 4 here and this little 5 up here. So it's got its little 5 ways finishing in here. And it may have another little high in here, but yeah, we need to see it play out as a pattern. So the arrival, which it is now, the arrival, and there'll be some sort of reaction and a classic trading levels pattern across here. It's either going to fail from here or going to move up, but we need to allow it to play out here first. So we'll keep an eye on that. Won't go into a lot of detail here on this, but that's where that is. So for the Australian market, let's just find that here, monthly chart here. Yeah, well, we'll go into this in a moment, but while we're here, I mean, this is sort of what we're looking at, really. I mean, we're looking at wave 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 here, and then up for 5 here on the monthly chart. I doubt if we'll go that high, but certainly the 6,500, which is the medium level, halfway between 5,000 and 8,000, and it always plays out nicely. In stocks, you'd see it at $6.50 or $16.50 or 65 cents and so on. Yes, but it's interesting, really, because, as you know, we've got the resources in Australia, and we've got the finance, which is basically the property market at this stage. So yeah, the banks have moved much higher than this old high here. WBC and Westpac and Commonwealth Bank are kind of the same in moving up. ANZ has struggled moving up a little bit, but it's moved up high up through here. This has been really lagging here. The US markets have just taken this top out here and continue to move higher, but this has been dragged down through here in the early stages of the resource sector. The resource sector started to become strong here for the 2016 run up. The same with the S&P 500 and the DAX and so on. So the materials sector has been in this 5-wave structure moving up through here, but it's certainly lagging. We expect wave 5 to take out that top there. If we have a look at CBA, which I was looking at here, you can see that on the monthly chart, this top here, we've really taken that out quite clearly here and moved up higher. If we look at A and Z, I mean, this wave 4 here hasn't overlapped wave 1 here, okay, so it's kind of okay, but on A and Z it has. So if we just find A and Z for a moment, A and Z, we could get a bounce. I won't talk about that just yet, but the A and Z here presents a bearish count, and the reason for that, this is the GFC here, and we could look at this as wave 1 and wave 2 and wave 3 to the upside here, and coming back for a wave 4 here, but it's overlapped the top of wave 1 here. Pull that line in here. Not by a little bit, by a lot, you know, so definitely got an overlapping wave structure, which really makes this an A and a B and a C wave up here. And if that's true, then we have this as wave 1 and wave 2 here, and we'll be looking for 5 waves in from B down to C here. I'm not expecting this to play out just here yet, and maybe it is just an overlapping wave structure, and we go up for 1 here and back for 2 here, and then move up through here, you know, so... being at the 61.8% here, you know, you'll see most of your indicators moving to the upsides here with these. If we put stochastics on here, we can see that we're back in these low areas here. So it's just natural where it is, that's all. So, but yeah, so anyway, it'll be interesting to see. We've got some of the banks in bearish positions like this, but it's not proven yet. I'd need to see it. A few other little things play out here first, but yeah, anyway. Back to the ASX 200 here, wherever that is. That's Apple, so that's not the one we want. So bring this back into here. So coming just straight into the daily chart. So I'm picking the daily chart up from this wave 4 here, and that wave 4 is down here, and we're looking for 5 waves up into this structure here. So that's where we are here. So we've got wave 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 up here. A bit messy, I know that, but there we go. So we're in this wave 4 here. So we've got wave 3 in. We're trying to figure out what this is in here, and there's a couple of things that we can sort of work out here. This particular pattern here that's come down as the A wave here, then a high A wave here, and then a B wave. It didn't go that high up in the English market, and it hasn't done that high either in the Nifty here as well. The A wave here is still quite low, but still the same pattern, the A wave, then A and 3 waves here, like the UK market and the Australian market, and then looking for 5 waves up into the 61.8% mark, or the 10,800 here. And this is the same for the Nikkei as well, in this particular pattern as well. So the same sort of pattern here, so we'll look for this to play out here. The Hang Seng and China are different, so the HSI here, we're expecting this to drop here as well, but it's just still sitting on the fence here on the 30,000 here. We're expecting it to drop through and play the rest of this particular pattern out here, but we need the rest of the world to drop as well, you know, and it's not dropping just yet. It's sitting there, and we'll see. I mean, yeah, and the China market, the top 50 China stocks here, they're quite bearish as well here in this case. So we're looking at this particular structure down here completing down here to the 11,500. So we've been looking at from wave 3 low here. It's possible to have this wave 4 low, wave 4 in here. It just makes this wave 4 correction a little bit small compared to the previous wave 4. But it's okay. It can just move down from there, so we need to be mindful of that. We don't really trade this, so I don't pull it apart and figure it all out, but wave 4 can come to here, so that means if you are short, you still need to keep your stops out of the way, and the 11,000 is your target. But this is a different pattern from the other markets, you know, from the this is the Hang Seng on the daily. It's different. It's same but different. So the Nikkei is the same, the Nifty's the same, and the Australian market's much the same as well. Slightly different, but it's there. So what we've been doing is we've been looking at 5 waves moving up through here. It hasn't been an easy count in this section. Some of the moves are okay. I'm not going to turn bullish in this market unless we had 6,000 as the support, because it's the closest, largest number within all of this. And this is where the supply, the sellers, the resistance really plays out here as well. So, you know, even we could get something like this here. It would still take a while to get support here, you know. It would still take, you know, just a while to do that. So we're in no rush to turn bullish on the situation at this stage. We're just looking for the rally to move up here. We know this rally's been driven by the resource sector. So that's all a bit of a mix in there. We can look at BHP and Rio, and look at Glencore and Vale on the US market and things, to try and understand the wave count a little bit. Yeah, we might just do that. So this particular pattern going up here, like the FTSE, we're counting 5 waves up here, as you know. So I'm not sure what charts I've updated. This is an alternative count that I would have spoken about before, I'm sure, because it's there. So I'll just talk about it here. So in this particular case here, this is quite clear here. It's a bit dodgy, but basically 1 and 2 here and 3 up here, 4 back to here. I'm sort of ignoring the spike here, and then up for 5 here, because that's the logical next step to take. So 5 waves to wave 1 and 2 here. I know that we can count 5 waves to this point here. I will look at the other alternative count, but this one here this is a bit of an extension, taking it up into the 6,000 area here, then having a correction, then having one more move up, and then folding down at that point here. I don't think this is the case, but it's just something that we may need to work through as such. On the hourly chart, we've got it different. We've got the 5 waves here, which is fine. We can see a bit clearer here, 1 and 2 and 3 here, and looking at this as 4 here, even though it's overlapping, but 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 to the last one here. It just makes the most sense at this point. And then this one here can count. It's also rough as well, the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 5 here, and the 4th here, and then the 5th wave up here. This all can be counted differently within here as well. If you've got wave 3 sitting over here, and this is an A wave and a B wave and a C wave, that's kind of okay as well. It still doesn't make any difference, still leaves you where you are. And then we're looking for 5 waves up here in terms of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 up here. So we're looking for failure at this point. The only mistake I can make in here is either having, it's not clear, but having this is wave 1 and 2 here, which would make all of this just the 3rd wave to this point. But we can't turn, we're basically been looking at going long, and we're above the closest largest number here, and we had that as a signal and that as a signal, and you could have had this as a signal, but it doesn't matter. So we're not really looking for short trades yet with this. So at this stage, we would need to leave that there for the short trade. You could probably bring it up to the 50 here, but make sure that it's a retested resistance if it's going to play out here. The US markets were up a little bit, but that might not pan out. So you really need that retest here to do any short trade here. So don't go short just because it drops a little bit here. We're in group 2. We can expect resistance from here, but we're also looking for this to finish, and that may already be finished in here as well. I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, if I go into the tick chart here, I haven't really laid that out very well here. Look, if if this high is breached, this high through here is breached, then you can go long from that point there. But otherwise, wait. And also the 72 as a support gives you a chance to add long contracts on, and also onto here as well, and exiting at 6,000. Well, you don't have to exit at 6,000. I mean, if it was me, I always go for the 8 before the number. So because the sellers will come in quite sharp on the larger number. They'll also be there on the number 8 as well. 8's a profit-taking number. So with Rio and BHP and so on, I might just start with the biggest iron ore guys, which is Vale. So this is a weekly chart here. This is the whole chart here. So what sort of interests me is from this low here, the 2016 low, because that's when the S&P 500 started to move to the upside. So there's certain trends within the market. You know, all the ones that are started on this low here are pretty much the same. So this market's really quite easy to count. So this is basically wave 1 to here and wave 2 to here. Okay, then we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. This is the weekly chart here. So this is wave 3 here. So then we have wave 4 here, pulling back to wave 4 of 1 lesser degree, or the 38.2% retracement level. And then to the upside here, we can look at this as this will be the 5th wave moving up here, and it seems to be this seems to be bigger than this particular structure here. So we can see that it's expanding, because normally wave 3 would be the longest and the strongest, but in this case here, this whole structure is moving out quite, it's just bigger. So it's an expanding trend. So we've got wave 1 here for the 5th wave, wave 2, and then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. So this is a very clear wave count. Then wave 4 pulling back to the wave 4 of 1 lesser degree. So then we're moving up through here. So we expect to make a new high above here. So that's kind of where we are. If I take that onto the daily, I don't know if it's counted or not. Oh, yeah, it is. There we go. So the wave 1 we talked about, the wave 2, and then the 3rd wave here, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So this is the same. This is Vale's, you know, mainly iron ore, Brazilian, traded on the New York. So wave 4 here, so much the same as Rio and BHP, and then wave 1 and 2 here, which is clear, and then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here for the 3rd wave. The 4th wave here, coming back to the 4th wave of 1 lesser degree, and then the 5th wave moving up. Wave 4 may get more complicated, but all the wave 4s so far have had those pretty much straight. That's a little wave 4 in here, that's a little wave 4 in here. So they've been pretty straightforward, the wave 4s, you know. So this is a cleaner count than Rio and BHP. So I can see here that we've got wave 1 here and wave 2 here, okay? Then we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so we'll have 5 here, so that will be the top of the 3rd. Top of the 3rd in Elliott normally comes in on top of the previous structure here, unless it's parabolic or something. So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 here, and 4 here, and then 5 here to 15. So that's really what BHP and Rio and all that will do as well here. So they got the same sort of count. It's just a little bit hard to see Rio and BHP. So with let me find them here somewhere. I might just have to change my watch list here. Lists. So this wave 4 here, in this case is for BHP, is this wave 4 here. Okay, so there's gaps in this market here that's a little bit tricky, but if I took it off the Vale one, then we'd be looking at something like this here. Okay, And this will be the same for Rio as well. Let me find Rio here. Okay, so Rio's the same as well. So in this case here, we got the wave 4 here, and this is a little bit tricky. That's just a 4-hour count. Maybe I've got it on the daily. Yeah, look, I'm just a little bit unsure about this, the actual count coming up through here. But what I can say is that when this finds support here on the 80, then you can go long, and we can go long up to 85 at that point. But we know that while banks were pushing down, yeah, they're out of sync a little bit, but not to worry about that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, look, just the bigger picture here for the resources as such. I won't go into the banks today. But perhaps next time we can have a look at the banks and compare them in their little corrections to these guys. But they're still on the bearish side. Finance is still bearish. Resources are still bullish, except resources are doing little corrections. We can expect little rallies in the banking sector. Alrighty, cheers.